Hello everyone. Today we will be discussing GPU pod scheduling. This is session 2 of week 3 and we are going to dive deep into how basically GPU pod scheduling is done. So session 1 basically introduced the GPU pod pattern conceptually, right? We actually discussed there will be some node selector, right? And there will be some toleration, there will be certain taintedness and resource limitation because we need to have the pass through for the driver, okay, which detects the GPU, so on and so forth. And we just saw that as a scheduling story. We actually ran pod, right? But we never ran it on a GPU specifically. We also never saw that whether it's actually running on a GPU, right? So today we are going to discuss all of that in detail a bit, right? So let's try to understand this till now. We were discussing that there is this thing like a pod, which basically has a container. Let us say it's a hello world container, right? Whether it's running on a GPU or not is a different issue, but for the time being, let's assume that there's a pod which has a container which is a hello world program, and then there is basically a node, right? And for the time being, let's assume that this node runs this particular container, and then from the Windows host, right, which basically has the real GPU and the NVIDIA driver, we have a Docker desktop virtual machine which works in conjunction with WSL2, right? That is the Ubuntu part of it. So, and then we have this setup of Docker containers basically running on the Docker desktop, which basically in turn is going to access the Windows host, which has the real GPU and which basically has the NVIDIA driver, right? So now this is a specific type of thing which we discussed yesterday. And this mini cube node, I'll tell you what it is. For the time being, let's assume that the Docker desktop, right, does not support the GPU pass through. So we need to have a uh, another environment, so as to say, which basically is the mini cube, right? So mini cube basically helps us to have this option of pass through, right, and access the GPU when basically pods are running, right? So this is a brief idea about minikube. We'll discuss this in detail. So let us try to go more into the hands-on part today, okay, and see how basically we are going to run a GPU based pod, right? So this is again this YAML file for GPU smoke. That's a simple program. So I'll just go and show you what we are going to do today, okay? And again, we will start with this program folder, which is 02 GPU pod, okay? And then there is this particular readme section also, which talks about how do we actually run this particular specific program. So there are three programs here. One is hello GPU, GPU smoke, and GPU smoke working, right? So this creates an error. We will discuss why that error is created and then how do we solve it when we are trying to execute it. So let us try to go to my document, which is the lab manual actually, and this is what we would be discussing today and executing certain program. Okay, so today's is a more of a hands-on session rather than the theoretical session. So this particular program is going to actually show us a minimal YAML which is needed to get a pod scheduled onto a GPU node. So there will basically be a node selector that pins the pod to nodes labeled as GPU workers. There will be a toleration for the taint GPU nodes, which usually nodes generally carry. So only GPU requesting workloads are going to be near to the GPU. Okay, and we have this resource limit. That basically means that the extended resource that the NVIDIA device plugin advertises to the scheduler. So this basically means that we are having a node selector that will pin the node pod to the nodes which are labeled as GPU workers. And there is this toleration for the taint GPU so that other pods which they don't want GPUs or they don't have GPU workloads need not actually accidentally start using the GPU nodes, right? So the basic idea here is we will require a GPU aware cluster here, right? And this GPU aware cluster means that a cluster which supports pods running in such a way that there is this pass through, right, from the pod to the actual GPU. So Docker Desktop's built-in Kubernetes, okay, has no NVIDIA device plugin. So this means that we cannot schedule, okay, this nvidia.com/GPU at all. So this means the pod will sit pending forever there because it is not able to actually see, right, the NVIDIA GPUs, right? So this demo, we will be using Minikube, right? And this Minikube basically supports GPU pass through. That's what it means, right? So what are we going to actually do? We are going to label a node so that the pod's node selector matches it, right? And then we apply the manifest. So this basically means that the cube control label node Minikube accelerate is equal to NVIDIA, and override means any other person would have been using it because we are having a very small cluster now. Okay, it's just a one node cluster, right? So we generally try to overwrite so that everything becomes free and we can use it, because I'm just showing you on a single node cluster, right? And Minikube helps us to do that. And then we apply this YML program, okay, and then we see how it logs. So what basically is this GPU smoke doing? It actually prints the NVIDIA SMI table, which is printed from inside a pod that a Kubernetes scheduled using the GPU as an extended resource. So this is what actually is happening when we run this. There is another program which basically talks of Hello GPU. So this basically is a Hello World program on a GPU scheduled pod. Okay, and this GPU scheduled pod is basically having the same idea as the GPU smoke working YAML. So this is this working YAML. There is this smoke YAML which is giving some errors, right? We'll see what errors it gives. And then we talk of node selector plus toleration to land on the GPU node. There is this resource limit of 1 to actually claim the GPU as a scheduled resource, and then the host path privileged workaround. This nested WSL2 sets up needs to see the driver at all. So this basically means these are the things, right? We can delete finally that particular pod. We can check what that particular pod does for us, and we have to actually apply that pod. Okay, so this is this API version, which basically talks of something like version v1, and this is basically the manifest which we are talking about. So you see the tolerations here. The key, or the basically the key here is basically the taint key, okay, which talks of the toleration applies to. So this means if empty means match all the taint keys. If the key is empty, operator must be exists. This combination means to match all values and all keys. So this key basically is going to match, okay, that particular taint. Taint basically means that's a very very strict rule, right? And not everybody can come near that particular tainted GPU, right? That's what it means. That's how it has been nomenclatured basically. So here the node selector, what is the accelerator, which is the container we are trying to run, okay, and then what's it going to actually print? Hello world from a GPU scheduled Kubernetes pod. It's running on the GPU, okay, so on and so forth. So this is privileged path and all of that. So we'll try to see each of these things gradually as we go along, okay. But before we actually see what environment we have changed since the previous session, this session basically we have got two contexts which are running. See here, one is this Docker desktop and another one is the Minikube, right? And the namespace default is basically now set in my situation today to the Minikube environment, because Minikube gives me the pass-through access, and that is why I'm using that Minikube context right today. So now let us try to run this program, okay, and see what are we going to be doing, right? So let us try to run this first, okay, these things. So here if you see, okay, there is this particular thing which tells us the path GPU smoke.yml does not exist, right? But we are able to get this particular information about it, okay, which actually is not a correct thing, because we have actually a not labeled, right, that node slash minikube. So let us try to run this GPU smoke working and see the difference of what actually is happening, okay. So let us first try to label, okay, node minikube, label node minikube, okay, override, it's not label this thing. So now apply GPU smoke working actually, okay. I'm trying to apply it using kube control, and then let us see what happens. Okay, 1 minute. Let me just go to that folder and then do this. Okay, so now GPU smoke is configured, so my pod is actually configured, right? And then I now okay, log and see what actually happens. Okay, so it is working. GPU minus smoke minus working, okay. So now there is this issue that pod GPU smoke working not found in the namespace default. Now, why is this happening? Is because it will take some time, okay, for us to actually see the pod, okay, getting instantiated, right, in that particular namespace, right? So now at present the pod is not found. It will take some time, so let us try to give it some time and see what happens. Okay, so after some time we'll be able to see it. So let me just try and do it once again. uh, Sometimes takes some time to do it, so let me again try once again. Why it's taking so much time? Okay, so here if you see, okay, see here the pod GPU smoke is invalid, spec forbidden, may not change the fields, so it is not labeled because it is just GPU smoke, right? So what we will try to do is we will see this all error. Okay, so we will try to change this now again to GPU smoke working. Okay, sorry, and then so here I will change everything to working. Okay, then let me just now run this and see what actually happens. So let's wait for some time. It will take some time for, so in the meantime let us try to see the program hello.gpu, right? It's a smaller program, so it gives us things very fast. Okay, so this is again the same thing, cube control apply hello GPU logs and then basically delete, right? So if you see this YAML program, it actually does this. Okay, so there's a very small echo thing which is running, and basically it's a thing which is running on the GPU. Okay, let me see this. So let's try to do this and see what effectively happens in this specific case. Okay, and then we'll discuss that. So here it will be hello minus GPU. Hello minus GPU. Okay, so it's a very fast thing right here. Basically, that this talks of, see, pod hello.gpu configured. Once it's configured, it basically runs, it's ready, it's scheduled on the pod running on the GPU, and it tells that NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3050 Ti GPU with this much amount of memory, right? So this basically is a very fast thing which happens, and you can always do that. So let me just try to show you these two things again. So here let us try starting it once again as to what basically we were trying to do, and let us check why that error actually was coming so frequently, right? So one of the things which we can actually try to see here is that oh, I will clear it once again actually, and then actually we will see it once again and then we'll try to execute, right? So if we go here again, so we'll try to actually take this set of commands and then see as to what happens. Okay. Okay, so here if you see that this GPU smoke actually was created, right? The container got created and it got completed. Okay, and then we can now see as to what actually it is executing for us, right, in another window here. Okay, so we'll open another split window here and then try to see actually of what we can again get about this specific pod. See here, it completed its execution, right? And if we are able to see actually as to what this particular thing is doing, okay, so if we do it again and see the log, okay, it actually should give us this. Okay, so this basically means that the GPU smoke, okay, was initially giving us errors, and then we actually applied GPU smoke working to it and then gave it a name. Okay, get that pod particular thing into GPU smoke and then the name wise, and then we basically see the log and it is running. There is no error, nothing of that sort. Okay, so this basically means that we are executing things here. Okay, and then our container is getting created, it's getting readied, it's getting completed, it's getting executed, all of that. Okay, so one of the things which I wish to tell you in this case is this Kubernetes namespace by default, okay, actually if you see here the hello GPU thing, it is pending infinitely. It is not getting completed because it is waiting for the hello GPU program which I tried to run, okay, and it's waiting because there is no pass through, so it's pending, right? One of the things is that this dashboard will never give us the mini cube related context and the pods which are running. These are all running in this Docker desktop namespace. That is what we should remember. Okay, so there are other programs running, other pods running continuously in this namespace, but not on the minikube namespace. Please understand this. So that's what I should have actually told you earlier, but now I am telling that this particular namespace is not from the minikube namespace, and for that we need to actually see the minikube namespace. Okay, and then we need to actually use this command. Okay, what I'll do is I'll open another terminal, okay, and show you the context of minikube, right? And then here we'll try to see the various pods which are available. Okay. Okay, see, so I was working right before this session also, so it is showing you this, it got completed, the hello GPU program, right? I showed you that as well. So this basically means that this is how we are going to check for the mini cube type of context here. Okay, and now let us try to run some other program and see the actual thing here. So for example, I will delete the hello pod. So I will delete the hello GPU pod. Okay, and then see the context again. So pod hello GPU deleted from the default namespace. Now this default namespace is of the mini cube, right? So let us try to check that also, and what happens. See here, this is still in the pending thing, right? So I have to go to the namespace of the Docker desktop context. As I showed you, we were having two contexts, right? And then delete that. So now if you see the context here, okay, so here if you now tell get hello GPU pod, it will tell that pod is not found. So what we are going to now try to do is we will try to run GPU smoke working. Okay, and then let us see what best we can do, right? So by executing this, so let us try to do this. Oh, how to go to 02, and then trying to apply this, and then log GPU. Why we did not get this? So let me just try to again copy the things. Why it's not showing me this? Some typing problem or something. You see, container is getting created. It's completed. So execution got completed here, right? Now, correct. And now we'll try to see. Okay. See here. Sometimes what happens when you see here, so many times GPU smoke got completed, which actually was running in the background, but we did not see that context. So it was like this. So this is how so many times it got completed. Okay. And basically it gave us certain things. Okay. Now GPU smoke is done. Okay. Let us try to understand GPU smoke working also now and see what happens. Okay. So GPU smoke working. Okay, so see here, this is, so here So because of that, it actually is giving some glitches, but once you run this, it's going to complete and give you this particular thing once everything happens correctly, right? So I suppose you would have understood how do you work with a GPU pass through, okay, using Minikube, okay, in Kubernetes. Thank you.